Joining me live now is Vekuii Rukoro, paramount chief of the Herero people and Namibia's former Attorney General. So Vekuii, thank you so much for being with us. So I just want to recap to our audience the real sort of level of atrocities that took place between 1904 and 1908 in Namibia against members of your own tribe. Up to 80% of the Herero people, the tribe that you belong to, were murdered brutally by Germans during that period. What do you make of Germany's acknowledgement after 100 years and the $1.1 billion in assistance that they are providing to Namibia right now?
Thanks for having me on your show. Germany's so-called acknowledgement seriously does not excite us. Coming as it does, more than 100 years after the event, after denials, after refusals to do so. That's the first point. Secondly, after deliberate exclusions, excluding us, the legitimate representatives of the descendants of the victim communities from the process that led to this so-called agreement between the two governments, contrary to settled international law and United Nations principles, that in matters of this nature, affected communities are entitled to be represented by self-appointed representatives. Most importantly, the acknowledgement is not an acknowledgement that what happened to our ancestors actually constitute genocide in terms of settled international law principles, which otherwise would have led to the payment of reparations proper, is understood by
right, that was actually else. Yeah, Vekuii, that was going to be my next question, because the language has been very sort of carefully worded on behalf of the Germans.
Exactly.
They're not calling it reparations at all, because obviously that implies greater responsibility, a greater level of guilt, etc. They're calling it financial support. How much do you think the language really matters here to you?
It's deliberately so crafted. After all, in their press statements, they say, the German Foreign Office says that it is a gesture, quote unquote, a gesture, which means out of the goodness of their own hearts, they decided to provide, quote unquote, support to the affected groups to the tune of 1.1 billion euro. So it has nothing to do with reparations to us. It is support for infrastructure projects to their friends, to their client state, the Namibian government, in political regions in which the so-called affected communities live.